Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy listening. Paul Foster's fingers move over a keyboard fixed in the air, and a holographic message flashes in front of him. The foreign text turned into English, its contents burned into his retinas, and Zorak was dead. "You are his heir. Come to Proxima B." Paul immediately blinks and shakes Zorak, his alien pen, his friend who has been dead for 5 years, and the heir is a simple programmer from Boston. It must be a joke. But as the days went by and more information came out, each code was checked, and only he and Zorak knew it was happening. 2 weeks later, Paul was aboard an interstellar transport traveling through the void to Proxima Centauri. The journey was shrouded in a fog of cryosleep and brief, confusing moments of consciousness as the ship began to descend to Paul beside him, his face pressed against the observation window. A strange world opened before him, a tapestry of dark purple and swirling silver clouds. His heart was beating wildly. It was real. It happened. The boat was swallowed by gentle groaning legs, and his land style was adjusted, which was suitable for an alien atmosphere, but he was able to control the best in a short time. For the first time, a small, enthusiastic party was waiting for him. 2 figures stand out right away, their stranger beauty, which took your breath away. One tall and lying with shining blue skin, considered him with piercing silver eyes, the other shorter, with iridescent scales and graceful kendriller framing her face, offered a warm smile and put him at ease. "Welcome, Paul Foster," the higher said, her voice melodious, yet pricked with another worldwide resonance. "I am Azora, Zorak's first wife, and I are Leah." The other added her tone, a softer, almost musical second wife of Zorak, and now, along with my sister wife Y and inheritance Paul /S jaw dropped. What wives Zorak never mentioned, or a /S eyes flashed. "There is much Zorak did not tell you. It seems come we have much to discuss." They led him to a slender vehicle that flew quietly above the ground when they went to Paul's mind city, whirling with questions that the landscape was foreign to the outside but persecuted, beautiful, all twisting and floating gardens. And I don't understand why Paul finally succeeded. Why did Zorak leave everything up to me? We were friends, sure, but it was crazy, and Leah placed a gentle hand on his arm, sending an electric tingle through his body. Zorak saw something special in Paula. He thought you could build bridges between our worlds, but why did I, Paul, insist that I was only a programmer? Know nothing of your world or your customs. I can't even breathe your air without help. Azor's gaze pierced him. Perhaps this is the reason why a new perspective that our complexity has not done slows down a vehicle approaching the rails that seemed challenging. The crystal pointed were twisted up, connected to gossip bridges that sparkled alien in the sunlight. "Welcome to your new home," Leah said softly. Paul craned his neck and stepped outside to enjoy the full view of the building. "This is mine." Aza corrected the hint of challenge in his voice. "Remember, we are part of your heritage." Paul blushed, unsure of how to respond. "Look at the situation on Earth. We don't do that at all. We are aware of earthly customs," Leah gently interjected, "but you are no longer on Earth, Paul Foster. Here, you have to learn new ways." They entered the building and Paul gasped. The interior was a marvel of alien architecture and technology, with holographic screens flickering as you walked past and displaying streams of data. He could not understand. Azula explains that this is Zorak's main residence and the main research facility where he works. "It can change everything." Research? Paul asked Leah what kind of research she was doing. Azula exchanged looks, and Leah carefully said it was for the next interview. "Now you must rest. The journey is long and there is much to do." They led him to a large room with an exotic cityscape, and Paul collapsed on a bed that seemed to conform to his body. When he realized he had hit him, Paul's heart began playing. This is not just inheritance. That night, under the soft glow of the alien lamps, Azora and Leia entered their world in the most intimate way, introducing him to their intimate customs. Their bodies are like works of art, with every curve and line showing their elegance and beauty. Azora and Ilia embody the ideal of beauty, but there is something deeper about them. Paul was confused in front of them and excited, and his heart was breathing in time. He knew this moment would change him forever. Azora was the first to approach. She moves with the grace and confidence of a predator, her skin glowing in the soft lighting, giving the illusion of being surrounded by a faint halo. She is tall and slender, and every step she takes is full of strength and determination. Azora touched his arm with her fingers, a cold, confident feeling washed over Paul as a wave of excitement washed over her at her touch. Her touch was commanding yet gentle, as if she knew his every thought and wish. Leia, on the other hand, is the epitome of delicate tenderness. Her hair glistened like a waterfall. In the light that flowed behind her, her eyes were a deep violet with a hypnotic appeal. She came closer. Her movements were smooth and graceful, like a dancer's, and her touch was soft and teasing. She seemed to cover their warmth and tenderness, and Azora and Leia made Paul perform a huge and exciting ritual. Their connection is immediately electric. They welcomed him into their world, their traditions, and their bed with an openness that left him breathless. Azora was leaning against her lips, just an inch from his ear, and whispering something in her language. Her voice was melodious and hypnotic. Let Paul want her to give up. Will she put her hand on his shoulder? Her touch was firm, and it was guaranteed that Paul felt her body was responding to her order. She slowly stretched her fingers to her back. Her touch was so soft it almost tickled Paul, and his skin responded to her touch with goosebumps. Her touch was like a breeze, arousing emotions and feelings. He couldn't control Azor and Leia. Their movements were synchronized. Their bodies merged in a harmonious dance, and Paul felt that they were guiding him. Their movements were coordinated and confident, with Azora holding his hand tightly and her eyes determined. Her touch was strong and confident, while Leia's was gentle and caring. Her touch was gentle and soothing, and Paul felt his body and mind begin to merge with their world. He could feel their body heat, their breath, and their emotions. Their touch was like an electric shock that awakened new feelings and desires in him. In the strange light of this intimate setting, Paul felt his bond with Azula and Leia grow deeper and stronger, and he felt that he was part of something big and important. Their body is the embodiment of perfect beauty and harmony. Their movements are coordinated, their voices are confident, and their melodies are melodious and hypnotic. They were his guides to new worlds. Their touches and sighs stirred emotions in him. He never knew he had it. This night, every contact they had was filled with passion and intimacy. Every sigh and exclamation left a deep mark on his heart and soul, and Paul felt like he became part of their world, their culture, and their traditions. Azora and Ilia spoke with such openness and warmth. The way they welcomed him made him feel wanted and needed, and that he was ready to embrace their world, their traditions, and their love. This night marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life that he would always remember. Paul felt that he was now more than just an heir. He had become part of their world, their culture, and their hearts. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of new experiences. Azula and Leia are patient teachers as Paul tries to adjust to the unfamiliar gravity, strange foods, and complicated social mores that seem to dominate every interaction, but he can sometimes sense their frustration. No, The cerulean didn't sigh one night as Paul tinkered with alien technology. You have to feel the flow of energy, not blindly manipulate it. Paul gritted his teeth. I try, but all this means nothing to me here on Earth. We have nothing. This may be your problem. Think like an Earthling, Leah gently suggested. You have to open your mind to new possibilities, and as time went on, Paul began to notice strange things, a murmur of conversation that stopped when he entered the room. It always felt like there were strange signals coming from the communication device he was learning to use, and one night, unable to sleep, Paul wandered the halls of his new home. He ended up in Zorak's studio, in a room he had yet to fully explore, as he ran his hand over the alien's desk. Something clicked, and a hidden room containing a data crystal appeared inside. Unlike the man with shaking hands seen earlier, he put it on the nearest console. Zorak's face looked serious and eager. If you see this, then I am dead, and the situation is serious. The legacy I have left behind. You are more than wealth and possessions. It is both a responsibility and a mission. Some power threatens our world, and you are the key to preventing it. As the alarm began to scream loudly throughout the building, when Paul turned around and found Aura and Eli at the door, the message was suddenly intermittent. Their faces showed concern. Here they were, Azula hissed, agents of Kronos. We have to leave now while they are running down the hall. The sound of breaking glass and screams echoed behind them. Paul's heart skipped a beat. Who was Kronos? No matter what they want, and most importantly, what Zorak tells him to do, when they reach a hidden exit, Paul is sure of one thing. His life will never be the same again. Paul Azul and Leah's airship flew across the purple plain in front of Paul and flew from the swirling silver clouds overhead to the protruding crystal structures on the ground, and it was hard to believe it wasn't true. Paul asked, "Where exactly are we going?" To break the tense silence they'd been stuck in since their narrow escape from Kronos agent Azula's silver eyes locking her away to the sacred caverns of Luminera. If Zorak left any clues about her research and why Kron was following it, we would find them there, her iridescent scales bent and glowing. These caves are special to Paul, it is said, and so are the people. As they neared the mountains, Azora spoke with a hint of a smile about what ability. Paul noticed strange symbols carved into the rock surface. As they approached, they seemed to be throbbing with inner light. We went here, and LRI announced that the vehicle was placed in the winding channel, and the gas became stronger and denser and emitted a strange sweetness. Paul is dizzy, almost to the point of pain, and here we are. Azora whispered, her voice echoing in the hollow space they entered, a wonder of natural beauty. Crystals of any color-breaking light in dazzling patterns in the middle stood a raised dais surrounded by several of the pulsating symbols. What Paul now asks in his voice that sounds strange to his own ears. Rhea took his hand and sent a shock through her body. Now we move on to the Rite of Unity, the only way to unlock the cave. Paul hesitates, but the rush of Halo's eyes propels him forward. They position themselves on top of the idol, forming a triangle, and Azula began to sing in a foreign language. Symbols flourished around them. He thought they were experiencing her memory as if it were his own LIA consciousness. They joined their cues, and they shared for a while. Every thought, every feeling, and when it was over, Paul dropped to his knees, gasping for breath. What was it about Azora that helped him awaken her potential? Zorak's theoretical people seemed to have no potential for development. When they went into the cave system, he seemed right. Paul discovered that he could sense things beyond normal perception, like faint whispers of past events. The emotional fallout left behind is huge, but there's something exciting here, and what I call a hint of the hidden albe is that I feel the Zork's energy. They discover a cache of data crystals, each of which emits a message when Paul touches them. Images flooded his mind, glimpses of complex equations, stars, diagrams, and an incredibly powerful device. This is what Azora breathed into Zork's life work, the key to balancing the energies between our worlds before they could celebrate. A rumble shook the whole, and small cliffs rained down as harsh voices repeated from the entrance. Leah whispered, "They found us." They rushed through the tunnels, and Paul's newfound powers forced them to take shortcuts. He somehow knew he was. They flushed out of the hidden output just to get an armed figure surrounded by smooth black armor, long, putting an alien, whose skin deeply crawled over Zork's. In his research search, he was outraged or faced with consequences. Paul's mind competed with his new senses. He could sense the intentions of other aliens, their fears, and their weaknesses, but he didn't really understand how he was able to project a stream of psychic energy. As the attackers stumbled around, clutching their heads in confusion, Azula and Leia leapt into action. With a blur of deadly precision, Paul joined the brood, his body moving with a grace and power he had never experienced before after a fight as they caught their breath and tended to minor wounds. Paul felt a new intimacy with the Azora and saw what they had. They faced danger together and fought as one. The bond forged in the cave had been tempered by fire. "We need to get off the world," Aora said urgently. "Kronos will send reinforcements. We need to get Zorak's research to safety." They went to a hidden mountain. He was used to the explanation of Zork's personal boat because they were attracted to the most advanced situation and almost impossible to discover when the atmosphere burst. Paul's newfound abilities grew by leaps and bounds. He could feel the ship as if it were an extension of his own body without thinking about his hands on the control panel, and the ship responded by accelerating faster than it should in zero-gravity space. Paul, Azula, and Leah floated freely in the main cabin of the ship. Their movements brought them closer, and Paul felt the energy between them shift, filled with possibility. Suddenly the ship tilted. The alarm sounded. Paul's hand touched a hidden panel, and the holographic display suddenly lit up. The ancient symbols swirled before them, rearranged into a complex diagram ruled by the whispering stars of the Azores. This is the complete plan for the Zork's device. Harmonic resonator. As the chart rotated, Paul's enhanced mind began to understand its effects. This is not just about wealth or power. He understood the device loudly. It can transform reality itself. LRI seriously nodded. Now you understand the true nature of your inheritance. Paul Zorak entrusted you with the power to maintain balance between our worlds or to destroy them. Both weights of responsibility settled on Paul's shoulders. He looked at Azula and Leia, now seen not just as beautiful aliens or unexpected companions, but as partners in a mission to determine the fate of two civilizations. "Then what do we do?" he asked, a new determination in his voice and a mixture of pride and concern sparkling in Azula's eyes. "We found the components to build the resonator before Kronos and Paul Foster did. As the ship traveled through the starry void, we saved the universe." Paul knew his journey had only just begun. The mystery of Zorak's death, the threat of Kronos, and the amazing power now available. It all came together by chance. He could never have imagined, with Aura and Leah by his side, that he was ready to face any challenge. "Lie down in front." The massive viewing screen aboard the Zorak's ship flickered to life, revealing Kronos' crimson face twisted into a sneer by Triff. Paul's stomach nodded as he realized the gravity of their situation. "You have led me on quite a hunt." Human Kronos growled. His voice resonates through the ship's cal system, but the playing time is transferred, Zork's research and harmonic resonant, or see that both your miserable land and Proxima burned. Paul's eyes were thrown to Azura and Leia when he saw his fears reflected. His fears are reflected in his fears, reflected in his own fear, reflected in his own fear, reflected in his own fear of strangers. He turned off the hard time you bluffed. "You don't have that kind of firepower." Kronos' laughter sent chills down Paul's spine. Oh, but the view shifted, showing a massive fleet of warships surrounding both planets, courtesy of some influential friends who'd rather see both our worlds destroyed than united. You have an hour's decision. The screen is missing and dark, and 3 of them are nervous in silence. Era said her silver eyes are hard. The ships had enough firepower to split the crust of both planets, but the strings were torn. In excitement. We can't let that happen. Billions will die. Paul's mind reeled as he considered the gravity of the situation. There must be a way to stop him. The resonator is not complete. The finished product is missing critical parts. Paul closed his eyes and used his newfound powers. He could feel the ships swirling around him, distant planets pulsing and such. A connection formed in the caverns of Luminera that connected him to Azor, and his eyes opened. Maybe we don't need physical resonators, so what? If we were, Resonator Leah would be wide-eyed when she understood the oneness ritual that more than awakens your abilities. Paul. It connects us directly. Paul said it excitedly. Architecture. Zorx's research is all about harmonics that create resonance between different energy states. What if we can do it ourselves? Azora nodded slowly. It was possible, but the energy it required could kill us. Paul kept quieter than both worlds. They settled into a triangle like a sacred cave, and Paul physically and mentally reached out to take the hands of Azora and Leah, more closely connected to life than ever before. Pay attention to the planets. Paul made him feel their energy in a strained voice. We need to create a harmonious field around them because they are concentrated. Paul, who felt the power that creates power in him, unlike anything he had experienced before, it surged through his body and threatened to tear him apart. He gritted his teeth and pushed through the pain, alarms suddenly going off throughout the ship. The Crown Fleet had opened fire, but it was not enough. Azora gasped. We needed more power. Paul's mind raced to the Zorx tech ship. Now it is all part of his legacy, with spiritual demands. He linked the ship's systems into an energy matrix, and the screen flickered with life force, showing a flickering field beginning to form around Earth and Proxima B, but it was still too weak to fend off Kronos' attack. Pauli's voice was barely a whisper. The last part of your heritage is your memory of Earth and your connection to home. This is a bridge between worlds, and Zorak knows we need Paul, but at a sad cost. He realized what he had to sacrifice by closing his eyes. He opened his mind completely and released all the memories that were related to his old life. The energy surged, and Paul screamed as he felt a part of himself burn. The ship shuddered as Kronos' forces realized what was happening and focused their fire on them, but it was too late. A blinding flash filled the view screen as it faded, the ground and proximity engulfed in flickering, impenetrable energy fields. Kronos' weapon bounced off the surface harmlessly. No sign of Kronos' furious face appeared on the screen. What have you done? Paul stepped forward, his body glowing with remaining energy. We had achieved what Zorak had always wanted, to unite our worlds against those who would destroy them. Paul reached through the energy field and took control of Kronos, or I will. Crashing with you and your fleet against the nearest sun, Kronos' face contorted in anger, but he knew he was defeated. This is not the end. He growled before hanging up. As the adrenaline wore off, Paul stumbled and was caught in the steady arms of Azula and Leah. Did we do it? He asked, in his voice. Weak Leah waved with tears. Inside her eyes, we made both worlds safe. Aura's voice was full of wonder, and more. See the display screen energy fields around the Earth and nearby pulsating. Perfect synchronization where they touched the bridge of pure light that formed between the planets. Zorak's last gift. Azura led the way for our world to truly connect as Paulus watched. The bridge of light, the fragmented memories flashing in his mind, the Earth his old life. It was there, but now far away like a half-remembered dream, and he realized the sacrifice he had made to save both worlds. He asked now, looking at Azora, and Leelia smiled softly. Now we rebuild. You, Paul Foster, will lead the way. Azora beckons. You are the bridge between our worlds. Now Paul, the guardian of this new alliance, took a deep breath as he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. But as he looked at Azula and Leia, he knew he wasn't going to face this alone. A year later, Paul stood on the balcony of the New Earth Embassy on Proxima Centauri, an alien sun casting a purple glow over a land that was now so familiar but still took his breath away. He heard Azula and Leia's soft footsteps approaching, and his heart filled with warmth. Their bond is stronger than ever, and the first transport from Earth is about to arrive. Lily's voice was full of excitement. Paul nodded his head, mixed with emotions. It was hard to believe that it had been a year since we activated the bridge. Azora placed a hand on his shoulder. You have done exceptionally well. Get used to your new role. Zorak would be proud. Paul smiled as he thought of his old friend, and the mystery of Zorak's death was solved just months after their victory. He sacrifices himself to push these events forward, knowing that only through crises can their world truly come together. There is still much to do, Paul said as he stared down at the bustling city of Kronos that still exists. There will always be people who are afraid of change, but we face it together. Leia reminded him to hold his hand, and Azora nodded, her silver eyes shining as Zorak spoke of the three beings from different worlds. In unison, Paul felt a surge of hope as the first ray of light announced the arrival of the ground transport. The road ahead is uncertain and full of challenges he can barely imagine, but he has Halo and Leia by his side and the combined power of both worlds. Behind him, he is ready for whatever the universe has to offer. The bridge between Earth and Proxima Centauri is charged with energy, a testament to what can be achieved when different worlds meet. It is centered around Paul Azura and the other guardians of Leia, a new age of interstellar cooperation.